Elijah's a very soft-spoken, well-mannered person. Good energy, outgoing, all about family and friends. Not in the streets at all.
Stop me if you guys have heard this one before. A black man ends up getting killed. It is alleged that he had charged at the police officer, maybe possibly drew a gun, and the officer had no choice. And immediately, when the family hears the story, they don't believe it. Immediately, they go to the press. They start talking about how their family member is actually a family man, an innocent Beba Angel Aladdin. They break out the graduation photos from his high school, possibly the prom, and immediately they retain a black attorney that's supposedly a civil rights attorney in order to get some kind of compensation. Well, we've heard that story many, many times throughout the recent history of this country, and of course, these stories have become fewer and far between in terms of their longevity due to the fact that Black Lives Matter, in the ultimate monkey's paw wish scenario, actually ended up getting body cams actually attached to the police officers. But in this particular case, the white officer in question was actually off duty. In this particular case, this shooting was based on what was described by said officer, and of course, this gave a lot more leeway for people to pursue charges against him. And in addition to that, and again, stop me if you heard this one before, witnesses around the area said that actually the black guy was just checking on the damage to his car because there was an accident where the white officer was actually at fault, and then the white officer is the one who lost his mind and ended up shooting and killing the innocent Beba Angel black person.
Wilks' friends told 12 News they are not aware of him having a gun and dispute the information from police.
No, they're not telling the truth. That story they posted is not the truth. Quiet. Not the truth at all.
One witness who did not want to be identified told our James Stratton he heard an exchange of gunfire.
It was definitely a momentary pause between one gunshot and the return gunshots.
So you believe there were two separate guns?
Yeah, absolutely.
While a second witness told me a different version.
They said that there was an exchange of gunfire. Did you ever see?
I heard one gun. I didn't hear two different type of gunshots.
Well, this was what was put out there in the local news media. This was the family's take. They were rejecting the official story. However, in this particular instance, something that I've almost never seen in my entire life happened, which is the dash cam video that this officer had on his personal vehicle ended up telling the truth of his story, which happens a lot. But then the family said the officer was in the right. He was defending himself. They recanted their allegations in the face of evidence, and honestly, they deserve a lot of credit for that, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
And here is what we know right now. Police say that off-duty police officer was wearing plain clothes and got into a minor vehicle accident right near 49th and Mill Road while on his way to work.
Police say he and the other driver got out of their vehicles to assess the damage, and that's when the chief says the other driver pulled a gun.
So look, I've noticed over the course of years that there's a certain segment of my audience every time I do a story about black crime that takes the opportunity to just insult black people in general, despite the fact that that's not my intention. In fact, on this channel, we talk about probably more than any other channel on the internet.com, how black people are disproportionately the victims of black criminality. But one of the things that we don't touch on is the fact that our culture is infected with this idea of rampant black victimization at the hands of police. And we've all seen the charts where the more left-wing you are, the more likely you are to believe that over 10,000 unarmed black people are murdered by the police each and every year. There was a famous clip from Nuance Bro when he was on a Twitter space where he was talking to one of these Gen Z for Biden types, and that guy actually tried to make the argument that 1/3 of the black population, which would be over 10 million people, were murdered by the police unarmed each and every year.
No. You're telling me 13.2 million black people are getting shot and killed unarmed every year?
There's context to that. There's definitely context to those numbers.
Dude, you're fucking crazy, dude. That's like a fucking Holocaust. And dude, every black person would be dead in like fucking 3 years. Like, what are you talking about? That's crazy. What are you saying?
Yet we're still dying.
Dude,
in
you know what the actual answer is?
White.
Jeremy, do you know what the actual answer is? Because I actually have the real numbers. You've clearly never done this. I'm fucking mind blown right now, dude. The real number by Washington Post, keep tracks of this, unarmed black people shot by police, men and women. It's usually like 10 people, dude. It's like 10, maybe like 20 in a year. Sometimes it's like 8, you know, it fluctuates. It's like 7 to like 22, maybe. Like, that's what it is. Not million. Like, that's just total. Do you believe that?
I'm going to have to do more research. If you send me the link, I'll look.
You were claiming, like, what was the number, Jonathan?
30% of 44 million.
13.2 million. You said 30% of the entire black population. That is crazy.
Roughly, yeah. I actually
dude,
believe
that is insane.
Like 20 to 30%.
Dude, legit, if Harry and Chris were in here even right now, they would be like, dude, what the we got to tell Elise to fire this guy. This guy's fucking nuts. Like, he's out of his fucking mind. He's smoking more crack than fucking Hunter Biden. Like, this is insane.
Dude, that's 2 Chicago's worth of black people.
Yeah.
I can't believe what I'm hearing. Like, they don't have enough bullets to fucking do that, probably.
Okay, is 15 to 20% fair then?
No!
Because then it's like 6.
Do you know numbers? Like, what did you get in math class? What grades did you get, dude? Like, I can't believe. Have you never talked to anybody, like, about this issue? Like, with numbers ever? I am, like, guys, people in the audience, can I get some reactions in here? Like, what are you guys thinking about this? Like, are you guys as shocked as I am? Like, this is insane. This is crazy. You don't even have to know about the crime issue at all to know what these claims are insane.
And again, the reason that I show you that clip is not just to make fun of that TikTok influencer, although that is very much a deserved response to those insane numbers, especially when you try to walk it back to like maybe 25% of the entire black population being killed while unarmed by the police in any given year, which is just insane. But again, these are the people being paid for as influencers by the Democratic Party. But it's for you to understand that the propaganda that we see across the mainstream media has an impact. It ends up being absorbed by certain sections of the population. So put yourself in the shoes of these family members when you hear about an incident with one of your loved ones where supposedly they got into a fender bender and allegedly the guy happened to get out of the car super aggressively, pistol whipped the officer. Again, this was what was alleged by that police captain or whoever on the streets near the scene of the crime, and then drew his gun to fire upon the officer over what was a minor car accident.
That subject proceeded to strike the off-duty officer in the face with his firearm. The off-duty officer drew his department-issued firearm, and the two individuals exchanged gunfire, and the subject was struck. The subject, a 26-year-old male, was pronounced deceased at the scene.
Now, of course, you're going to have some skepticism. The idea that he merged improperly, hit the officer's car, then reacted in such a violent and aggressive way, that might not be the version of the family member that you see in your day-to-day lives. And with all that you've heard through the mainstream media about how black people are just victimized by police all the time, especially white police officers, it is not unusual for you to question that, for you to demand more evidence. And I will even say, to a certain extent, it's actually good to question that. It's good to question the government, question authority, and try to get the facts as best you can. Now, in this particular case, we were blessed. We were lucky. Another Black Lives Matter hoax was averted due to the fact that the off-duty officer had dashcam video in his vehicle, and I'd like to examine that video with the note that I'm going to have to redact it heavily because the last time I didn't redact well enough, which I totally disagree with YouTube. Not only did I get demonetized, but I actually got age restricted 45 minutes after I hit publish on that particular video. So let's examine the footage. Again, take into account that the family member of this black individual has been inundated with propaganda, by the way, in Milwaukee in particular, about evil white racist police officers. And again, let's see what actually went down and think about how insane that what actually went down according to the video actually is, because these are not rational, sensible responses to a fender bender that was caused, again, by the person who ultimately ended up getting killed in the shootout that he started.
are you doing?
So for those of you who are unaware, obviously the off-duty police officer is in the vehicle with the dash cam, so we're getting that perspective from him. There is a car ahead of him in his same lane that is unrelated to this particular incident, but of course Elijah Wilks is in the car that is already going over the lane without a signal, by the way, trying to merge into the lane with the officer. Now, the officer is maintaining speed. He is not changing his lane at all whatsoever, but there is a construction zone right there. And I can understand, as somebody who occasionally expresses rage while on the road, the frustration with not being able to merge in front of somebody when you want to. But obviously, Elijah Wilks acting wildly inappropriately right here. And again, contrary to what was fed to us by the family early on, and of course by the very questionable, dubious witnesses that were likely fame-seeking themselves, Elijah Wilks is at fault for an improper merge without a turn signal, and of course, you could tell just by the way he's driving after the contact is made that he is incredibly angry. Now again, in this part of the video right here, you could see that Elijah Wilks pulls over. Again, you could tell that there's aggressive movement of his particular vehicle. People who have been driving for a long time know the signs when they know it, but it is standard fare after you get into a minor fender bender for you to pull over and exchange information and, of course, discuss the situation. However, Elijah Wilks, not interested in that. Elijah Wilks is definitely on one today. He's definitely angry. And again, even though this story may have seemed preposterous to the family, the video completely validates what the officer told to other officers who came out on the day of in order to investigate this particular shooting. So, of course, we're going to have these two individuals get out of the vehicle. Now, I will just point out that if you're ever in a crazy situation like this, where somebody gets into a fender bender with you, that I would definitely leave the car in drive, so that way, if somebody ends up going crazy when they get out the vehicle, you see that kind of energy, you could take off right away. But of course, the guy in the vehicle that has the dash cam is an off-duty police officer, so I'm certain he did not feel particularly under threat and felt like that this could be mediated in some way, got the insurance information and whatnot. However, again, I will add that if your dash cam captures the plate, you feel uncomfortable, you feel like this situation is going to escalate, do not give in to road rage because it can have terrible results. And but for the fact that this guy was an off-duty officer who was armed, who understood the threat as it was presented to him, it could be him as the person who was killed, again, over a fender bender that was 100% the fault of Elijah Wilks. So it's actually difficult to hear what's being said by these two parties, but one of the words or phrases that I can make out, it sounds like, is that he said that he was in the effing lane. We saw it on the video, but you can also see Elijah reaching into his hoodie pocket. Again, it was originally said by the lawyer that Elijah was going to assess damage on his own vehicle. That is not the case. That is definitely not what happened. And what we ultimately end up finding out from the video, which by the way will be linked in the description of this video, under where it says sources, I also label it, so stop saying that you can't find the videos, I will come after you if you keep lying like that, is that Elijah pulls out a pistol from his hoodie pocket and immediately pistol whips this person. Now again, this is insane, crazy behavior. Elijah Wilks 100% at fault right here. Elijah Wilks is in fact the perpetrator. Elijah Wilks is in fact the problem. He's at fault for the accident. He's at fault for the aggressive response. And yet he immediately pistol whips this guy that he doesn't know. And you can actually see when he's walking away whether he's going to make the decision to hit him and then get in his car, or he's going to make the decision, now that he's already brought a gun to the table, to fire on this person who, again, he doesn't know from a hole in the wall. But but the officer was prepared. The officer was ready. He may have got snuck up upon with that pistol whip, but he knew once the gun is out, his gun needed to come out. And you can actually see, and I won't play the video because YouTube's ready to age restrict me right now, the shots exchange, and of course, the officer ends up coming out the victor. Now remember, the family did not believe the account of events that we just witnessed on the video. They believed accounts from random witnesses. They went on their gut feelings. However, they were invited by the Milwaukee Police Department to see a private screening of the Dashcam video. They watched the Dashcam video twice, and after that first day where they were making up a big fuss, they retained a civil rights lawyer and all that, they then had an additional press conference where their civil rights lawyer and the mother of Elijah ended up giving a statement.
We will acknowledge that we do believe that this officer-involved shooting was justified.
Early and often, Elijah Wilks' family and their attorney acknowledged the 26-year-old made a bad decision that resulted in his death Thursday morning.
I don't think I've ever come before and did a press conference and said this.
Elijah's mother, Pamela Bond-Slater, and their attorney, Ivory Lamar, watched the video twice Friday at MPD headquarters. Lamar said it showed Wilks aggressively cut off the officer's car, causing the officer to hit Wilks' car. They each pulled over and got out. They spoke, then Elijah pulled out a gun.
He does slap the off-duty officer with the firearm. The video does depict Elijah pointing the firearm at the off-duty officer, and the off-duty officer did respond, what we believe, in accordance with his training.
The officer fired several shots. Elijah ran to the front of his vehicle. When he popped up, the officer fired more shots.
He made a bad decision yesterday, and unfortunately, it came with dire consequences.
Again, we almost never see this happen. We almost never see contrition from these race-hustling civil rights attorneys. But guess what? This guy came out and he said the officer acted in accordance with his training. Elijah did hit him with the pistol. He did point the gun at him. And essentially, he made horrible mistakes that ended up costing him his life. Now, the mother, even though it is reported that she acknowledged that her son was at fault in the shooting, didn't want to speak to this particular set of media, but they had other family members that came out and said thank you to the Milwaukee police for being transparent with them, for actually showing them the footage so they could see what happened, so they can begin to go through the grieving process without feeling like they have a particular grievance against the Milwaukee PD.
I would also like to thank the Milwaukee Police Department for their transparency and their professionalism.
And again, I want to say that this family right here is significantly more honorable than other families who, despite overwhelming evidence to the contrary, double down on the narrative, try to play this up to get more money. And I really genuinely appreciate the fact that in such a tragic situation where they're going to be grieving no matter what, they were able to acknowledge reality and essentially calm down the tensions in our country.
No matter the fault, they're grieving the loss of a son, grandson, nephew, and brother.
My brother was all I got, for real. Like, that's my only sibling. And now he's gone.
And that's the thing that people really need to understand, that regardless of who Elijah was in that moment, how that moment ultimately ended up costing him his life and all of that, to them, this was a loved one. To them, this was a member of their family, a close friend. They had a bunch of people out here in order to support Elijah and his mother, who again is grieving the loss of their son, and they were able to act with a level of rationality that I challenge many out there in my own audience who are grieving the loss of a loved one to actually accept. They actually took radical responsibility, or actually pinned radical personal responsibility on their own son in the face of facts, and this is something that we almost never see. Remember, the Michael Brown family, who, by the way, actually got arrested over the fight over merch between the father and the stepmom, and the mother and the stepfather, who has the rights to sell Hands Up, Don't Shoot merch years later. That's a real story that happened. They're still pushing the idea that Michael Brown didn't assault Officer Darren Wilson. They want multiple investigations, despite the fact that there were 3 investigations at the time of the shooting, 3 separate autopsies. Then they elected a prosecutor specifically to reopen the case. He shared with them that they have absolutely no case against Darren Wilson, and yet over a decade later, they're still pushing the lie in the face of overwhelming evidence. But this family, they demanded answers. They demanded proof of what was being alleged by this off-duty officer. They got that proof, and they went to the press and said they were right. They told the truth. Somebody that we loved acted absolutely ridiculously. We are heartbroken by the loss, but the officer had a right to defend himself. He did defend himself. And again, that is so incredibly honorable, especially compared to what we see normally as the baseline, that you got to give credit where credit is due. But of course, I want to know what you guys think about all this down in the comments below. As per usual, if you like this video, show them by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on the social media, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the Elijah Wilks case and the family's stunning yet incredibly honest response to the evidence laid out in this case. Till next time.